and to glean them really quickly, and they were great. If something's burning at the end for someone, again, there's opportunity to connect with them afterward, but if we have a lot of time left over, then I guess we'll take questions from the audience. All right, Claudia and Wanda, I want to let you hold the microphone, and she has her own mic.
So if you're like me, when you first start in government or start learning about what's going on in government, there's so many friggin' terms that tax rate. What? You know, I just pay my taxes. I don't know what the rate is. So, and revenue and rainy day fund, and there are just so many terms that we use that you should not be afraid to ask questions about, okay? Because the more you learn about these terms, they help you understand, you know, what the backbone of government is and how we operate. So before we get started, I just wanted to tell you that. So don't be ashamed, don't be afraid, ask questions that are on your mind. That's the only way you learn. But we have two wonderful experts here who can answer almost any question, even, yeah. I know when I have questions, I certainly go to them to ask, you know, exactly what I need. They tell me what I need to know when it comes to trying to explain things in plain English to people so that they can understand. But you asked some marvelous questions here. So I'm just gonna, they're not in any particular order, and if you wanna take credit for it, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. But anyway, I'm gonna kick it off with this first question. Does the mayor's vote count the same as other council members? And I know who can answer that.
Oh, I'll be happy to take that. So as I mentioned in the presentation, we have 7 members, a mayor and 6 council members, and they all get 1 vote when it comes to, you know, an action item. They take those action items on Monday night and first and third Monday nights, and sometimes they suspend the rules and take those action items during the work session, but most of them are done on first and third Monday nights.
Okay, and this is kind of a follow-up to that. And I know I mentioned the tax rate, so this question wanted clarification. Is 53 cents, 53.17 cents the property tax rate?
Yes, that is the per $100 dollars of valuation. So that is the property tax rate. We do also, just like the county, have sales tax that's part of our revenue model, and it's our second largest source of general government revenue, but that number that I gave was just based on real property and personal property, but motor vehicles.
Okay. Next question for Claudia. Please talk about county debt. For example, how much county debt does the county have?
The county has approximately $800 million worth of debt. It translates to about $70 million of debt service payment every year.
Who knows what debt service is?
That's like your, I'm sorry, it's a great question. So you have your mortgage for your house, and every month you have a payment that you pay. And so that's basically what it is. So it's your principal and interest for that debt that you're servicing. Because we are both AAA entities, we get the best borrowing rate. And so when we go to the market to sell our debt, we get great rates compared to jurisdictions that are not at this level. So that's why it's important that we look at the level of debt, and all those other factors. I was about to go into a long speech and I didn't stop, but that's the answer to that question.
Okay. Wanda, would you care to answer that same question for the city?
Well, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's less than the county, but it's still a big number. And it is, you know, we have a legal debt margin, which we both are way below the legal debt margin, but it is, you know, I don't want to say a bad number, but I don't know, you know how much it is, but it's like what, 400 million, something like that. But it's a big number.
Okay, thank you. All right. Could each of you share one success story from the past year or so that you think illustrates some of your strategic plan goals for the city and county, or city or county?
One success.
Mm-hmm. a success story. You wanna think about it a little bit?
Let me,
Okay.
I will talk about the investments in pre-K. I spent the early part of my career in public policy with the North Carolina Partnership for Children's Smart Start. And the most impact you can have on a child's development is from that 0 to 5 age range. Durham County has some challenges in that we're a fast-growing community. We also have high poverty rates. Over 23% of our children are in poverty. And so a lot of times if you're in situations, whether you're in poverty or you may not have the highest wealth, you may not have the dollars to support you getting early childhood education. And so I think from a strategic plan investment and looking at how do we improve our educational outcomes, that's a great win for Durham community and our children.
So I think I will say, in our goal of innovative and high-performing organization, we had, one of our goals was to actually build up the resources in our organization to be more innovative, be more engaged with community, real, I would say, hard problems that occur in our community, such as individuals who are not able to get jobs because of past records and some of the things that are barriers to people participating in the economy. And so one of our success stories is obtaining a grant from Bloomberg Foundation that allowed us to kickstart or early start our work in the area that was more outward facing, that over the long run is going to be beneficial to our residents, which is really work that we have wanted to do for a long time. It's been in our strategic plan, but being able to actually resource it, we got a jump start with it. You may have heard of the I-Team or similar information about the team that works with community partners to try to make a difference in some of our areas that we struggle in the community.
Okay. So this person wants to know, actually, they just want more clarity about what distinguishes county government from the city government. How specifically do they differ? And how do they overlap, if there is some overlap?
That's a great question. I think the largest difference, there are a couple of ways we can talk about it. One, when counties were structured and developed, the main factor is that they serve the community as an extension of the state. And probably half of our departments, well, not quite that many of them are carrying out duties that are state responsibilities. And so from a structure as well, although all the departments that are in the county, so although we have a public health director, there's a dotted line to the manager, but the state gives them most of their directives. So that's a lot of the differences as well, how they're managed. There are lots of governing boards for many of the county departments, from the Department of Social Services, Public Health. Those are all state mandated. The sheriff is independent. And so although he does fall within the county government operations, the sheriffs, they are different and elected, and so that makes it a little bit different. With the city, I'll let Wanda.
Yeah. So for many years, the County of Durham and the City of Durham have worked very closely together to look at ways where we can bring our resources together where things are so similar, or it's more efficient to do so. So that's why you find in some areas like planning, city-county planning, inspections, our tax assessors and collection functions, all of those functions are really city-county functions where we operate with each other under an interlocal agreement. Then there are services that we provide for city residents that sometimes are called urban services that counties don't provide, such as, the curbside garbage collection. The city maintains the city streets and traffic lights, and, we provide the municipal water and sewer services. So those are services that if you go anywhere in North Carolina, you will find local municipal governments providing certain services within counties that the county is not providing.
So I have a question. I know that with the water system, I know that goes out into the county. So in the county, with the city water sewer, that's a service that's offered to county residents.
So the county does have one sewer plant. The county owns a sewer plant, but the water and sewer, systems are owned by the city. And if someone does have, city water, but they don't live in the city limits, that's more of an enterprise, type service where it's been, the rates are set according to where you live, and if you don't pay city taxes, you pay a different rate for those services. It's an enterprise system.
That answers your question? It did, okay, all righty. So, speaking of the difference, someone said they wanted to ask a county question. What department would we talk to about getting hard-to-see road lane lines or markings repainted?
That's a good one. That's either the city or the Department of Transportation with the state.
That's
Yeah.
a city question.
That's it, yeah.
So there are county roads, roads that are in the county that are state roads. Those will be maintained by the state. There are state roads that come through the city that the city actually maintains, but the state reimburses us for that maintenance. One example is Fayetteville Road or Fayetteville Street in Durham. That is actually a state-owned street highway. And when it comes through the city of Durham, we don't own it, but we have an agreement with the state DOT to fill potholes, do maintenance, and they reimburse us for that maintenance. There's a side street like City Hall Plaza. I just use that. That's right over
Duke Street even.
Duke Street is
Explosion.
Duke Street is a state road. Mhm. But a neighborhood street or a street like City Hall Plaza, that's a city street, and so the city maintains, repaves, maintains the pavement on those streets and sidewalks. And the council, did that answer the question about who owns the streets, who fixes the streets?
You said sidewalks included?
Sidewalks, public sidewalks that are adjacent to the public right of way also are maintained by the city.
Okay, Wanda, hold on to that. They want to know about the council manager form of government. Where does the mayor fit in?
Okay. So the council manager form of government is a unique form of government in, several states. North Carolina is one of them. Texas is a state that has a lot of council manager form of government arrangements. It just means that within that municipality, there is a professional manager that runs the day-to-day operations of the government, and that the mayor and council have a role. That role is not full-time, and it is not a role that actually implements or does operations for the government. They are part of engaging with the community and those that would have elected them, and they give direction to their employees who they hire, city manager, city clerk, city attorney, to carry those directions out or carry out that policy. So the mayor is elected. The mayor is not a full-time employee like you might hear about the mayor of New York, or some of the strong mayor forms of government where a mayor is elected and that mayor runs the operations, day-to-day operations of the government. That is a strong mayor form of government, and we have a council manager form of government here in Durham, as most North Carolina cities and towns would have.
Answer your question? Whoever it was. Okay, all right. Next question is for Claudia. What are the 4 major economic development investments, and what are some examples of expected outcomes?
That's a great question. On our website, we do have a press release for each of the ones that I referred to. One was Par Excel, and it's a pharmaceutical company. They're expanding. And Merck is another one that's expanding. They are bringing, I cannot remember off the top of my head, close to 700 jobs, if I'm not mistaken, to the community. Another one was Avexis, and they are also expanding to the area, as well as Policy Genius, and that was the one that was most recent. Some of them, most of them, for at least for Durham County, there's a commitment that they have to bring a certain number of jobs and invest a certain level of dollars before we will contribute. For an example, the one, Policy Genius is more, I can remember that a little bit close because it just recently happened. Our investment was close to $188,000 for them. The state made a contribution as well, and I know they're bringing close to 300 jobs to the community, if not more. This is truly a pop quiz. And Corning is another one which was not a part of the 4 that was also an investment, but that's in the Trayburn Park area. So over the years, there's been a strategy to figure out, well, how do we attract companies, especially companies that will have job opportunities for for our residents that may not necessarily have a degree requirement. And that's important when looking at how do you remain competitive in the market, meet your residents' demands. If you're looking at trying to bring people out of poverty, you can't move that needle and folks don't have jobs. And so from an economic development perspective, that's been a big focus of the board to look at, what types of businesses they bring in, not just the technology companies, but a good mix that will meet the demands of the residents.
Claudia, I know sometimes people don't understand how incentives work. They think that if someone agrees to come to your county and build, they automatically get money as an incentive to help them do that. It doesn't quite work that way, does
It
it?
doesn't quite work that way, and this is, and I'll send some additional information to make sure you get the right answer or the full answer. But usually there is a partnership that occurs, often between the state, sometimes with the city, and then the county. The negotiators will work with that company to determine, well, what are the incentive levels that are needed. If it's a major commitment, which usually these are, those benchmarks are pretty high. And so they have to meet a certain threshold for investment and as well as jobs generated. Because one, we want to see, well, are you going to contribute in a way that gives the county some tax relief? Because the more businesses that we have, it does take less pressure off of our residents with property taxes. So you want to have the right mix there. And then job creation, that's important. We talk about all the people moving to the area. We have lots of companies here, but if you look at that chart that Wanda showed, that showed the biggest companies or largest taxpayers, it's much different than it was 10 years ago. IBM was up there 10 years ago. GlaxoSmithKline. So when you look at your market and how it's changing, trying to make sure that we are competitive, but helping to incentivize companies to come so that our employees or our residents, will have opportunities here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It's my understanding that when you structure these incentives, that you're never in a situation where the city or the county is gonna lose money on the deal. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think that's something else.
That is exactly correct. And we also have clawbacks. Clawback is a term that basically means If you don't meet those targets, then we will take our money back, or you will not get yours. And in many cases, you have to meet the target before you get the money. And then once you get the money, you have to maintain that target for a certain period of time. So let's say we incentivize a company and we did give them $180,000 and they said they're gonna bring 200 jobs. Well, they have to show that those jobs are maintained at that level for at least 5 years. And so that's an example of what that looks like. Not saying that happened for that particular one, but I'll send an example, but that's a great question.
Another question, real quick.
Sure.
In some of these agreements, I'm sure each one is different, but
Mhm.
are there any local hire requirements that are involved too, not just
That's a great question. We get that a lot. We cannot require them to hire local. And oftentimes they will develop it and state that they will strive to meet targets, but we can't require them to do that. And that's something that our policymakers have desired to do, but we unfortunately, by law, can't do that. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So Wanda, let's turn to you.
Go ahead.
Okay, let's talk about the resident satisfaction survey. Okay, you know a lot about that. How many residents actually take the survey, and is there a demographic breakdown of the results?
Thank you for that question. So we use a firm that, conducts our survey for us. The numbers sometimes sound a little low. I believe we have somewhere around 400 or 500 respondents, so we reach out to many more, but we have a target for the number of surveys that we receive back that meet the statistically significant sample so that we can apply the results to the total population. So we often are standing up explaining that it's a small number, but at the same time, we show that it is, it is a representative sample. We show mapping and demographics, and the survey company uses all kinds of methods, cell phone, home phone. If they start getting results that, and we're missing, certain groups, then they work a little harder to get results from, certain areas of the city, and then we demonstrate at the end, where that came from. And we're regularly looking at our survey to make sure that we are asking relevant questions, that we are changing or tweaking the questions, not changing them 100% because we do want to have comparability between years, but that we do have a tool, and that survey is actually a city-county resident survey now. Started out just being a city survey, but we do have questions for the county, and I believe there might be some school questions up there.
Yes, there's school
School questions
questions.
up there too.
And it's done every year now.
Yes, every year instead of every 2 years. We should do it every 2 years. So we want the feedback, and we make sure it's statistically, a statistical sample.
So we are about to run out of time, and I have one more question that I want to get in, and I am so sorry we're not going to get to answer all of these questions because they're very good. But just to wrap it up, I'm going to pose this one more question simply because we have an affordable housing referendum coming up, and it involves the Durham Housing Authority. And this person wanted to know, is the Durham Housing Authority a part of county government or city government?
So the Durham Housing Authority is an authority, which is a sort of like I call it a quasi-governmental type entity. It's not the city, it's not the county, it's an authority. The city of Durham appoints the board or the members, the governing board, to the housing authority. They appoint all of the members, but the members are independent once they get on the housing authority board, and they are the governing body of the housing authority. By far, the Durham Housing Authority's greatest funding source is from the federal government. Almost all of their funds come from the federal government. With the housing bond that is being anticipated, There is some, and even before the housing bond, the city government can use public dollars to invest in affordable housing, and bond funds are no different than tax funds or any other sources of revenue that we have to invest in affordable housing for the Durham community.
Okay, all right, thank you so much.
Kathy, I have a question.
Sure.
It will be
We're good.
short.
Okay.
In reference to, affordable housing, how does who comes up with the distribution of areas that they would be constructed in? The areas that they'll be constructed
The areas that they're being constructed in. So, is no real area of construction of affordable housing, you know, except for the Durham Housing Authority. They own property already in the community, so they own tracts of land or they own property that has buildings on it already. The Durham Housing Authority serves a population of residents where their average median income is 30% or below. Their income is 30% or below the average median income. So in the areas that are served by the Housing Authority, the property that they have is where folks that meet that criteria live. You know, otherwise, affordable housing can be all over the city through housing choice vouchers. Just I'm
So there's
hoping.
obviously a difference between affordable housing construction and low-income housing construction, right? There's a difference?
Well, we can have a very long conversation about that. You know, it really is about, different kinds of ways of funding, projects, whether it be through, tax credits, as part of the portfolio that funds, the dollars that fund a project. There are a lot of, I'll be happy to talk to you a little bit
All right.
about it at the end, but there's no targeted place for affordable housing unless, as I said, it is the housing authority and they already own the property that the housing will be developed on.
Thank you.
All right, Wanda, Claudia, thank you so much. Let's give these ladies a round of applause. It's not as easy as it looks. All right, thank you so much.